Today's episode is brought to you by Mazars. SoundCartel. Managing a post-COVID return to work isn't easy, when for many staff, working from home might have become a little too comfortable. So, how can you coax them back, and should you? From SoundCartel, I'm Nicole Goodman, and this is Business Essentials Daily. As bosses everywhere try navigating staffing ratios around who's working where and when, we turn to leading demographer, social commentator and futurist Mark McCrindle to find out what's really happening, or not, back at the office. Mark's been studying Australia's mood for a return to work. Who wants it? Who doesn't? Will our offices ever be the same again? In fact, will we even need them at all? Mark answers all these questions shortly with Heather Dawson. First, what does his research show about the number of people heading back to the office?
Well, it's slower than a lot of employers and indeed now government leaders want. We're not seeing our CBDs fill back up. We're not seeing a pivot back to the workplace at the speed that was hoped. And we've conducted research on that. The three big reservations Australians have as they reconsider getting back to the CBD. Number one is public transport, and there are concerns around that. The use of masks in a lot of our capitals are still required on public transport. Secondly, we've got the lifts in most of our office buildings, and that's an issue. And number three is just the long hours spent in shared common areas that is the modern office. So they were the reservations, and the fact is that Australians are going to need a reason to get back to the office because they found the productivity, let alone the convenience of work from home, to be very effective. We have been very agile in the speed at which we adapted to the work from home world. And if we go back to the office, employees are asking, what for? What is going to take place differently there? And that's why a lot of organisations and leaders are saying, if you can do some work from home, fantastic, but we need you back in the office to get that alignment, to get that vision together, to work on the collaborative projects, to do our team-based work. And we know that great output comes when we work together, and it can't all be done over a Zoom or on a shared platform. And face-to-face is, of course, unbeatable. So if the reason is there, if the safety mechanisms are there, and as Australians feel more confident, then we will start to see more of that return.
But Mark, how many employees actually do want to return to the workplace versus those who'd prefer to stay working at home? Do we know? We
do. From our research, it's about 61% are looking forward to going back. And indeed, to go back in a bit of a hybrid way. I think that with the right answers, with the right safety protocols, when there's greater confidence, and it might take a little bit of time, we'll probably end up with about 90% happy to head to some extent back to the workplace. So if someone was 5 days a week, they'll probably be 4 days in the office. If someone was maybe 4 days, they'll probably be 3 days in the office. So if we do the calculations on that, if we think about 90% of the people in the office 80% of the time, that means we'll end up with about 70% of those that we did have on any one day back in the office. That's probably where we'll settle.
Now, is age a big factor in our preference to work either at home or in the office?
It is. And when we've run the analysis on that, and it might surprise some people, it's the younger people that are keener to get back. We think, but aren't they the digital integrators and they're happy working anywhere and any time? They like their flexibility and keep things pretty simple. But actually, they also are the ones that most appreciate the social interaction. They're the most likely to have after work activities or connections. They're the least likely to have family back at home and the need to rush back for other responsibilities. They're also at the point in life, these 20-somethings, where the growth, the collegiality, learning from others, the upskilling and retraining is so important at their stage in career. Therefore, working with colleagues, hearing directly from a boss, picking up on just those learnings that take place interactively and almost vicariously through our day, they are the most attuned to that. It's actually us Gen Xers and baby boomers that are saying, well, I probably can manage working from home. So we are going to need a bit of a different strategy depending on the age we're targeting. We'll probably have to work harder to pull in the 40 and 50-something workers back to the office. The young ones, in most cases, are pretty keen to get back. And we do need all of the generations back, because the workplace is at its best when we've got that mix of experience and generations, that intergenerational connection that we can all learn from. So we need the mix, and we'll need to work harder with probably the older generations than the younger ones to get people back.
Okay, now what about employers? What are their preferences about working from home or the office?
Well, because most employers and managers are in the Generation X and Baby Boomer category, they're probably the key suspects here in not themselves wanting to rush back. Now they do, from a responsibility and from a work-focused perspective, they're happy to get back. And so they need to be the ones to do so and to set that example. If we want our teams back, then we do need our managers back. Leadership by example. I know that in a lot of organisations, they're now setting their mandates and they're saying, all right, we do need the managers back at least 4 days out of the 5, and the team members can have a bit more flexibility after that. But the leaders need to be there, because there is something about not only the example that they set, but that key role they have of training and giving feedback and getting the values alignment and casting the vision. And that is best done in an in situ context. When we looked at it from a survey of workers, we found that about 14% want to get back to the good old days of everyone in the office all of the time, and about 25% want to keep what we had in the peak of the lockdowns, everyone working from home all of the time. But the rest, almost 2/3 of workers, are saying, let's have the right mix of more work from the office than from home, but some work from home. And so I think that's why we'll settle with that mixed approach, but probably with managers leading by example and being there a bit more than the rest of the team.
Now, Mark, as a result of your research, you've described the office now as a hybrid place. What does hybrid look like?
Well, we're going to see, with more floor space available, if we end up with 70% of the headcount on any one day back in the office, that gives an opportunity to refurbish, to redesign, to create a 21st century, a post-COVID workplace. And it probably doesn't need all of those workstations, because if all we're saying to staff is come back to work because we want you to keep working the way you were, they'll say, but I was doing that very well for the last 9 months from home. But what is the work that they need to do together? It's the collaborative work, it's the envisioning together, it's the creative work, and that is, again, most seamlessly done. Can be done online and through technology, as we've shown, but can most seamlessly be done around a table or interacting. So the hybrid work will be a place where, sure, we have those places where we can get the work done, we can write the report, we can do the analysis, the workstation, bearing in mind it can be done from home if people have the right home setup. But the workplace particularly will need those collaborative spaces, those innovative hubs, those rooms where we can have meetings together or maybe co-create together. And that's a different looking office to just the open plan workstation one that we used to know. Keep in mind as well that while a lot of us could get a lot of work done from home, not everyone could. Some are in shared accommodation, they're in a place with young kids around, they're in a place with others working from home, and for them, they actually need the workplace to get the work done. For others, the workplace was the escape for whatever situation in their home life. Work was the secure place, work was the safe space. And so we do need to keep that in mind. We might be fine with work from home, not everyone is. And I think accommodating that and setting up a relevant workplace in a COVID environment, which have these new spaces, is going to bring the best from the organisation.
Now, managing staff across, multiple locations has been a challenge that employers have risen to incredibly well over the past year, haven't they? You've described it as a cultural revolution driven by COVID. So what does your research tell us about this revolution, Mark?
Well, it is the future, isn't it? On any given day, we will have some people in the office or in the workplace. We'll have some people perhaps zooming in. It provides great opportunities to get talent from wherever they may be, to have some alignment in our teams where we might have people from overseas or from interstate or other locations. So it does ensure that we can get the best from wherever they are, that we can connect with people regardless of where they happen to be located. So that's the great thing. But with this hybrid, with some people in situ and some online, with some people in the gathered workplace and others in the scattered workplace, we need the right sort of leadership. And that leadership can't just be the hierarchical one anymore. And we don't need the leaders who can walk around and check that everyone's doing their role because, again, they're not all in the office. We need the leaders who can enlarge their people and empower their people to make decisions wherever they are. It's the flat structure. It's the collaborative leader. It's the leader who can ensure that they have devolved power. Therefore, others can make decisions, whether they're in a regional hub or whether they're working themselves online, wherever they are. So leadership needs to change. Secondly, we need to double down on the culture. We can't just rely on connecting with people at the coffee machine or at the water cooler. We need to ensure that our team members are aligned to the vision, are focused on the values, and we've got that shared messaging, and that people feel included and connected, all the more in a time of dislocation and isolation. Which brings me to the third focus of leaders these days, not only a different style and focusing on culture, but doubling down on the well-being of their teams, because this has been unsettling for so many people around the world. And work was one of those social bottlenecks through which we passed on an almost daily basis. And we could say to people, hey, how are you traveling? Are you okay? And you can get a sense when someone is in the office if they're feeling, troubled by other issues or if they're just feeling a bit isolated. That's harder when, of course, we're more dislocated. So ensuring the well-being of our teams, ensuring that we're looking after them, ensuring that maybe they're not just working later and later because they can, if they work from home, but maybe just checking in to seeing that they are going well. And amidst all of that, ensuring that we're getting the best from our teams. So that does mean having the catch-ups, having the team meetings, whether they be virtual or in office, just to make sure that we're focused on the task, the accountability is there, the productivity is there, and that people have all they need to deliver the results.
That was Mark McCrindle, founder and principal at McCrindle Research. This episode of Business Essentials Daily is produced by the team at SoundCartel. Thanks for listening. I'm Nicole Goodman. We'll bring you more Be Daily tomorrow. Follow at BE Daily Podcast across social media and head to bedaily.com.au for more from the Business Essentials Daily podcast. SoundCartel. This episode was brought to you by Mazars. To find out more, visit mazars.com.au. That's mazars.com.au.